Emma Parker was only 13 when an ordinary walk through her quiet neighborhood turned into a heart-pounding test of survival as a stranger in a gray sedan began shadowing her every step. The late autumn air carried the scent of damp leaves as 13-year-old Emma strolled along the familiar sidewalks of Willow Creek. The sun had dipped low enough to bathe the neighborhood in a hazy orange glow, a soft light that made the cracked pavement and leaning fences look almost golden. She kicked at a small pile of leaves, listening to the crisp crunch echo in the quiet street. This was her favorite time of day, when most people were finishing dinner or still stuck in traffic and the world felt peaceful. Her backpack bounced lightly against her shoulders, filled with school books and the leftovers of an afternoon at her best friend's house. It was an ordinary Thursday, nothing special, just another easy walk home. As she turned onto a narrow side road lined with old maples, she noticed a gray sedan parked at the curb. At first, she barely gave it a glance. Cars parked on this street all the time, especially as the evening settled in. The driver's window was down slightly, but there was no movement inside. Emma kept walking, her sneakers tapping a steady rhythm on the sidewalk. After a few steps, though, a soft sound broke the calm. The low hum of an engine rumbled to life behind her. She didn't turn her head, but the hairs on her neck prickled. The car eased away from the curb, slow and deliberate, matching the pace of her walk. Emma's heartbeat quickened. Maybe the driver was just heading home, she told herself. Maybe it was a neighbor she didn't recognize. But each time she lengthened her stride, the car seemed to glide forward with the same careful slowness. The street felt suddenly empty, every house dark behind drawn curtains. Her mind raced through the safety talks her parents had given her. Stay alert, trust your instincts, never let anyone follow you home. She clutched the straps of her backpack and forced herself to stay calm. The gray sedan's headlights flickered briefly, reflecting off a puddle near the curb. Emma finally dared a sideways glance. Through the tinted glass, she could make out the faint outline of a figure behind the wheel. The person wore a dark baseball cap pulled low, face hidden in shadow. No wave, no friendly nod, just an unseen stare. A chill shot down her spine. She turned her gaze back to the sidewalk and focused on keeping her steps steady, fighting the urge to break into a run. The neighborhood she had walked 100 times before now felt like a maze of silent windows and locked doors. The fading daylight made each corner seem sharper, each tree trunk darker. Every small sound, the rustle of leaves, the distant bark of a dog felt amplified. Emma's senses sharpened as she tried to think ahead. Her house was still several blocks away. If the car followed her the whole way, it would know exactly where she lived. The thought made her stomach twist. Emma adjusted the strap of her backpack and took a deep breath, her mind quietly shifting from after-school daydreams to careful calculation. She needed a plan. Emma quickened her pace, letting her sneakers strike the pavement a little harder as if the sound alone might give her courage. The evening air felt cooler now, carrying a faint metallic chill that made her shiver despite her sweater. She kept her eyes forward, pretending to scroll on her phone, though her mind was far from calm. The soft purr of the engine stayed behind her, steady and patient. Each time she turned a corner, the car followed, never too close, never too far, like a shadow that refused to let go. Her thoughts darted in every direction, searching for an explanation that would make the moment ordinary. Maybe the driver was lost, maybe he lived nearby and just happened to be taking the same route. But with every block she crossed, that thin layer of logic peeled away. The sedan's movements were too careful, too deliberate. It slowed when she slowed, crept forward when she sped up, as if the driver was measuring her every step. Emma's heart thudded in her chest, a heavy rhythm that filled her ears. She tightened her grip on her backpack straps and scanned the street for help. Porch lights flickered to life here and there, but the windows were mostly dark. The houses, once familiar and welcoming, now felt distant and unreachable, as though the quiet town had folded into itself. A gust of wind rattled the dry branches overhead, and for a moment the sound blended with the soft growl of the car's engine, making her stomach twist. She considered crossing the street to break the pattern, but something told her it wouldn't matter. The driver would simply follow. Her parents' safety tips replayed in her mind like a checklist she had to get right. Stay visible. Don't go straight home. Find a place with people. She remembered the small grocery store 2 blocks away, but it meant walking toward a darker stretch of road first. The thought of stepping into that shadowy gap made her hesitate. Another glance over her shoulder confirmed her fear. The driver was still there. The baseball cap tilted slightly forward, face hidden behind the reflection of the fading light on the windshield. The car's headlights glowed faintly, washing the pavement in a pale beam that seemed to stretch toward her like a warning. Emma snapped her head back to the sidewalk, pretending she hadn't looked. She didn't want the driver to know she had noticed. Her breath quickened despite her effort to stay calm. Each inhale felt sharp and shallow, the cold air biting at her lungs. She imagined the sedan pulling closer, the door swinging open, a hand reaching out. The images flickered through her mind in quick flashes she couldn't stop. She tightened her jaw and focused on the rhythm of her steps, forcing her body to keep moving. Every sound, every flicker of light, every shadow on the pavement became a signal, a clue to what might happen next. The street ahead curved gently, leading toward a cluster of houses she barely knew. Somewhere in that curve, she hoped, lay a chance to break free. Emma's mind worked furiously as the curve of the street unfolded before her. Panic pressed at the edges of her thoughts, but she forced herself to think, not just react. Running straight ahead would only lead the car closer to her own house, a thought that tightened her chest with dread. She needed to disappear without looking like she was running. Her eyes darted over the surroundings, searching for anything that might help. A flicker of movement caught her attention, a narrow side street to the left, half hidden behind a tall row of hedges. She remembered it looped back toward the main road, a quiet residential lane where few cars passed. Without breaking stride, she veered onto it, pretending it was simply her planned route all along. The sound of tires crunching over gravel followed almost immediately. The gray sedan turned after her, smooth and silent except for the low rumble of the engine. Her stomach dropped. She kept her steps even, resisting the urge to sprint. The houses on this street were older, with deep yards and high fences, many of them shadowed by thick trees. Porch lights glowed here and there. But no one stood outside. It felt like a pocket of stillness where the rest of the world had slipped away. Emma spotted a wooden gate half open at the end of a driveway. A tall hedge curved around the yard inside, offering a hidden corner if she could reach it without drawing attention. Her heart pounded so loudly she thought the driver might hear it. She slowed her pace just enough to appear casual, then at the last second stepped through the gate and slipped into the yard. The grass muffled her footsteps as she ducked behind the hedge, crouching low until the thick branches swallowed her in shadow. Through a narrow gap in the leaves, she watched the street. The gray sedan rolled forward, its headlights sweeping over the pavement like searching eyes. The driver leaned slightly toward the passenger side, craning to see where she had gone. The car idled for a moment that felt endless, engine humming softly in the cool evening air. Emma pressed a hand over her mouth to quiet her breathing. Her legs trembled, muscles tight from holding still. The driver inched the car forward, stopping again just past the driveway. The brake lights flared red against the dark street, glowing like a warning. For a terrifying second, she feared he might back up or climb out to check the yard. But then the engine gave a sudden growl and the sedan accelerated, gliding down the street until it vanished around the corner. The sound of the motor faded into silence, leaving only the rustle of leaves and the pounding of her heartbeat. Emma stayed hidden a moment longer, waiting to be certain he was gone. The cold grass pressed against her knees, grounding her in the reality of her escape. She had bought herself time, now she needed to find a way home without leaving a trail the driver could follow. Emma remained crouched in the quiet yard until the night sounds slowly returned. A lone cricket chirped from the grass, and a faint breeze stirred the branches above her head. The sudden stillness after the sedan's departure made her ears ring. She stayed frozen for several long breaths, straining to catch any sign of the engine returning. Nothing came but the steady rhythm of her own heartbeat. Finally, she eased to her feet, her legs stiff and shaky from the crouch. Every movement felt louder than it should, as if the entire neighborhood might hear her sneakers brushing the damp ground. She slipped back toward the gate and peered onto the street. The road lay empty, washed in the faint glow of a few porch lights. The air smelled of wet leaves and distant wood smoke. For a brief second, relief washed over her, but it was quickly replaced by a fresh surge of caution. The man could be circling the block. He might be waiting on another street. Emma tightened her backpack straps and stepped carefully onto the sidewalk, choosing a direction that led away from her own house. Her instincts told her to stay in the open where people might see her, so she headed toward the busier road at the edge of the neighborhood. The path there was unfamiliar, weaving past houses she rarely noticed during her normal walks. Each yard seemed to hold its breath. Curtains drawn, televisions flickering behind closed windows. Her senses felt sharpened, every sound a signal. A passing breeze rattled a loose gate latch, making her heart leap. She forced herself to keep moving, steady but quick. As she neared the intersection, a sudden flash of blue light cut across the corner ahead. Emma froze. For a moment, she thought it might be the sedan returning with different headlights, but then the glow pulsed again, bright, rhythmic, unmistakable. Police lights, a cruiser idled near the end of the street, its roof bar spinning in the gathering dark. Two figures stood on the sidewalk beside it, their silhouettes sharp against the flashing lights. One of them gestured toward the far end of the block, where a group of neighbors had gathered. Emma's pulse kicked hard with a mixture of relief and confusion. She edged closer, staying half hidden behind a tree as she tried to hear their words. Fragments of conversation floated across the cool air, a license plate number, a description of a gray sedan, someone mentioning an attempted luring near the park earlier that afternoon. The phrases landed like small electric shocks. The stranger who had followed her wasn't just an odd driver or a lost neighbor. He had already been reported for trying to coax another child toward his car only hours before. The realization settled like a weight in her chest. Her decision to hide hadn't just protected her. It might have kept the man from finding another victim. She stood in the shadows for a few moments longer, letting the scene imprint in her mind: the flashing blue lights, the neighbors' worried faces, the knowledge that danger had been only a few steps behind her. Emma stayed in the shelter of the tree until she was certain the patrol car wasn't about to leave. The spinning blue lights reflected off the wet pavement like tiny sparks, giving the quiet street an otherworldly glow. Her body ached from tension, but she forced herself to stay alert. She scanned the road behind her, half expecting the gray sedan to glide silently into view. Instead, another set of headlights appeared from the far corner, this time from a second police vehicle. The sudden sight of authority felt like a thin layer of safety settling over the neighborhood. She stepped cautiously out from behind the tree and approached the officers. The closer she came, the more she could hear the low murmur of voices. Neighbors spoke in hurried tones, pointing toward different streets as if mapping the driver's path. A woman clutched her phone tightly, saying she had given a license plate number to the dispatcher. Emma's chest tightened at the mention of the car. It had been real all along, every detail from the baseball cap to the deliberate speed. Her instincts hadn't been a false alarm. One of the officers noticed her and gave a reassuring nod. Emma explained what had happened in careful, halting sentences. The officer listened closely, jotting notes while another patrol unit slowly cruised past, sweeping a spotlight along the empty road. The adults nearby fell silent as they realized how close danger had come. A few of them exchanged worried glances, as though picturing their own children walking the same route. The tension in the air deepened into a heavy quiet that only the flashing lights disturbed. A short time later, a crackle came through the officer's radio. The dispatcher announced that a suspect had been located a few blocks away. The description matched the man in the gray sedan perfectly. He had been spotted parked near another residential street, apparently waiting. Officers moved quickly, and the radio confirmed he was in custody. Emma felt a wave of relief so strong it left her knees weak. The threat was no longer drifting through the dark roads. He was caught before he could vanish again. Her parents arrived minutes later, their car pulling up with a squeal of tires. Their faces were pale but determined as they rushed toward her. The moment her mother wrapped her in a tight embrace, the tension she had been carrying finally cracked. The smells of familiar laundry soap and warm jackets anchored her back to safety. She explained everything once more, this time with her parents holding her shoulders. Each detail made the reality sharper: the slow-moving car, the hidden driver, the quiet decision to slip behind the hedge. As the police thanked her for staying calm and helping identify the vehicle, Emma realized her quick thinking had not only kept her safe, but had also helped end the man's search for another victim. The neighbors gradually drifted back to their homes, porch lights glowing a little brighter than before. Though the night was cool and the streets still, the quiet now felt different. It was the quiet of a town that had faced a hidden danger and refused to let it win.